Welcome to Mode Bespoke, I'm Atenas. For today's pattern, we're going to be working on a baby blanket featuring a star pattern. So let's get started. So here's a look at the blanket we're going to be crocheting today. For this project, you can use any medium or worsted yarn that you have available. You're also going to need two different size hooks. First one is a 5.5 millimeter hook, and we're going to use this hook for the blanket itself. So all of this stuff with the stripes and the stars, that's what we're going to use it for. The next one is a 5 millimeter hook for the border. Now, for this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to make the blanket. However, the border, I have a separate tutorial where I teach you how to make 4 different blanket borders. You'll find this border in that tutorial. This is a single crochet border, and I will link the video in the description box below. Let's take a look at our pattern and the construction for this blanket. So for those of you that are a little bit more experienced, we're going to be working entirely in double crochets. So all of these stitches, everything is double crochet, and this is just an open stitch, and this is just double crochet and a chain. That's all there is to it. Here are the row counts for the color blocks. This bottom one is 4, 2, 1, 1, and then you're going to work your star. Now for this top part, we're just going to do a bit of a repeat here. So we've got 1, 1, 2, 4, and then we repeat everything we did here at the bottom. You can find the written pattern for this blanket in my blog, and I'm going to leave a link in the description box below. There's also a PDF version available, and the PDF version includes the chart, which is what we're going to need to complete the stars. You can purchase the chart on its own if you don't want the full written pattern. So let's take a look here at the chart. Now, like I said, you can purchase this separately and you just print it out. This chart is specifically for the star. So I have one for all the color stripes, but the star one, I've got a section in Spanish and English, and then this right here is the instructions for how to read. A little overview for how to use this chart. Now I put 2 stars on here, but really all you need is just one. Now this pattern is worked in multiples of 29. So from one side of the star to the other, that's 29 stitches. Your initial chain is just multiples of 29, 29 for every star that you want. All right, so you're going to begin to read this from right to left. So you would complete all of the stitches for one star and go back to the beginning and start over if you're going to do multiple stars. So like here, we have our first row. So you'd begin your first star, you'd end about here, and then you just begin the row again. So you'd start from stitch 1 and go all the way across. And that's it. You just repeat the same chart over and over again until you complete the number of stars that you want. Now, for those of you that are left-handed, I've got right-handed stitch numbers, and then I also have left-handed stitch numbers. So for anyone that is left-handed, all you need to do is just fold your sheet. So there is a fold right here, little section, so you can see it. You're just going to fold on this and make sure it's nice and even. You're going to line up those numbers where the right-hand numbers are. So just cover them like this, and then just tape this down. And then you have the exact same stitch numbers, only you would read the chart from left to right. And that way it matches what you are crocheting. So there you go. Here's just a quick review how to read the chart. If you have any questions, just leave them down in the comment section and I'm happy to help. All right, so now let's take a look at how we're going to begin this pattern. So I'm going to begin doing a quick tutorial for double crochet for anybody who is a beginner. I'll show you how to do a color switch, and then we will move on to the star. So you're going to need a medium size worsted, or I think the other name is Caron for it. Just any medium yarn that you have. You can use any one, doesn't matter. We're going to grab this, and you're also going to need your 5.5 millimeter hook. So remember that this pattern is worked in multiples of 29. So you chain 29 for every star that you want. So this blanket is a bit more of a toddler blanket, and it's got 5 stars across. It measures 41.5 inches, and then it's 36.5 inches tall. So I did 5 stars across, which means 29 times 5 will give me my initial chain. But again, you can adjust it and make it whatever size you want. All right, let's begin then with a slip knot. So we're going to wrap the yarn around 2 fingers. And then we're going to take our hook and we're going to insert it into this front loop. We're going to grab the yarn that's right behind it and pull that through. And then you just remove your fingers and pull on the yarn threads to tighten the slip knot. All right, so we're going to begin with a chain, and to chain, you're going to wrap your yarn around your hook. So you're going to yarn over and pull the top loop through the bottom loop for 1. So you're going to yarn over and pull the top loop through the bottom one for 2, and then yarn over and pull through for 3. So you're just going to continue to chain until you reach the multiple of 29 that you want for your blanket size. Remember that I did 5, so if you're doing the same size as me, just 29 times 5 is the number of chains you'll need. And then let me complete my chain, and I will see you again in just a moment. Alright, so here's my chain. I made just a small sample, so I only did 29 stitches. Once you finish, though, you're going to need to chain 2 additional stitches. And this is for row 1. So you'll see this on the pattern, the beginning of row 1. So there's chain 1 and 2. And now for the next stitch, we have to skip the 2 chains that you just made. You're going to crochet into the 3rd stitch from your hook. So we're going to yarn over, and we're going to insert our hook into that 3rd stitch. So skip 1, 2, and go into 3. Insert your hook into the stitch. You're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. You're going to have 3 loops on your hook. Next, you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through these front 2 loops. So yarn over and pull through 2. And then yarn over and pull through the 2 remaining loops on your hook. So that is a double crochet. So we'll do another one right here. So let's go to the next stitch. We're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch right next to the one we just worked into. You're going to yarn over again and pull up a loop. You're going to have 3 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through 2. And you're going to yarn over and pull through the remaining 2 loops on your hook. And there you go. So just continue to double crochet in every stitch of the chain. So I'm going to finish this row and I'll see you again in just a moment. Okay, so I've got 1 stitch left. Let me just finish my double crochet. And there you go. So that is a row of double crochets. This is what you would repeat over and over until you complete the first 4 rows of your work. And that's for the first color. So let's transition into the second row. So to start your second row, you're going to begin with a chain 2. You're going to chain 2 at the beginning of every row. Turn your work around, and you are going to skip the first stitch. So this one. We're going to double crochet into the 2nd stitch. And you're going to do this in every row. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then you're going to close your stitch. So yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 2. So there we go. We have 2 stitches. Now we have 3 double crochets. And then you just continue working a double crochet into every stitch of the row. Alright, so because we have some color switches, I'm going to show you how to do a color switch real quick, and then we'll move on to the star. So you're going to just grab a yarn, and then make sure it's the same size as the one you were working with. So same size as the first one. And each of your color switches, you're going to do them the same. So let me pull out these stitches real quick. So you have to work your color stitch in the last stitch of the row. So in the very last double crochet of the row, right before you want that color switch. So here, I said you needed 4 rows for just to begin with the first color. So let's assume that this is just row number 4 for a second. We're going to begin our double crochet. And this is the last double crochet. You're going to yarn over, pull through 2, so that you are left with just 2 loops on your hook. Then you're going to grab your second color, and you're going to leave a nice long tail. You'll weave this in later, so don't worry about it. Just make sure you leave a nice long tail, loop it on your hook, and you're going to pull that gray loop through the 2 blue loops. Like that. And that is a color switch. And if you cut your blue yarn, just make sure that you leave a nice long tail end before you cut it. Alright, so you're going to grab your working yarn, and then we're going to begin the next row. And you would just begin the row with a chain 2, just like you would any other row. And then you turn your work around, you skip the first stitch of the row and you begin to double crochet into the second stitch. So pull up a loop, finish my double crochet, and then you would just continue to double crochet as you needed to, either per the pattern or depending on what the chart says. So there you go, and there's your color switch. All right, so let me pull these stitches out, and we're going to begin with the star chart. So let me complete this last double crochet in my row. There we go, and then we're ready to begin. So just to repeat the rows, now that if you're a beginner, you've watched this part, you need 4 in color 1, 2 in color 2, and then 1, 1, and then you begin your star. So for the star, we're going to need the chart. So here's our little chart. Remember that you only really need to look at one star. So I put 2 stars on here so you can see how they line up. But we're going to begin on stitch 1 in row 1, and we're going to work from left to right. We need 6 double crochets, and then you're going to have an open stitch, and then 15 double crochets, open stitch, and then finish the row with 6. So we're going to begin with a chain 2. So there's 1, 2. Turn your work around, and now this chain 2 counts as your very first stitch of the row. So that is stitch number 1. You're going to skip the first stitch and work your second double crochet into that second stitch of the row. So that's stitch 1, we skip 1, work into stitch 2. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that second stitch, and double crochet. So now we have 2 stitches. And here we have 3, 4, 5, and 6. There we go. So if we look at it, you made 5 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But your chain 2 counts as the first stitch. All right, so once you've completed your 6 stitches, we need to do an open stitch. So for this open stitch, you're going to chain 1. So that's the stitch. And then we have to skip 1 stitch. We're going to double crochet in the stitch right after that one. So skip 1, double crochet into this stitch. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, and double crochet. So this is what your open stitch is going to look like. It's made up of a chain, and then you skip 1, so these 2 line up, and then you're going to double crochet, you're going to double crochet in the stitch right after that. So now we have 15 double crochets. This one counts as 1. So this is the open stitch, there's 1, and you need 14 more stitches because you need a total of 15 between your 2 open stitches. So let me finish these really quickly. Okay, so here we have 14 and then 15. Okay, so we have 15 double crochets. Now we have to make another open stitch. So for the open stitch, we're just going to repeat what we did in the very first one. So you chain 1, you're going to skip 1, and then you're going to double crochet in the stitch right after that one. And then in all of the stitches at the end of the row as well. So here we go, here's our open stitch. And then we should have 5 more double crochets to finish our row. This counts as 1. So we need a total of 6. And that way our star matches and we have the same number of stitches on either side. So here we have 4, 5. And let me show you where stitch number 6 is going to go. So stitch number 6 is going to go into this top chain from the chain 2, I should say, that you did at the beginning of the row. So there you go. That's what it'll look like. So that is stitch number 6 for the row. All right, let's grab our chart. Now, we read from right to left because I crochet right-handed, but if you're left-handed, you read from left to right. Just reverse it for this next row. So for row number 2, if you're left-handed, you're going to read from right to left, and if you're right-handed, you're going to read from left to right. Okay, great. So we begin the row with 7 double crochets. We have an open stitch, double crochet, open stitch, and then 9 double crochets, then open, double, open, and then 7 stitches at the end. So that's how you would read the chart. Now for the rest of it, I'm just going to go through the stitch numbers, and you can use the chart if you would like to. All right, so we're going to begin the next row with a chain 2. We're going to turn our work around, and remember that you will always skip the first stitch of the row because this chain 2 counts as the first stitch. So we have 1 stitch, and we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and stitch number 7, you are going to crochet that into that chain space, so into the open stitch. Don't work it into the chain because the chain is quite small. Work it into that open stitch. So yarn over, and you're going to insert your hook into this chain space right here. Yarn over and pull up your loop, and then you just finish your double crochet. And there you go. That was stitch number 7. Now we have to do an open stitch, so we chain 1, we skip 1, and we work a double crochet into the stitch right next to that. And that was the double crochet. So it was open, double, and then we need another open stitch, and then the rest of our double crochets. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip a stitch, go to the one right next to it, we're going to double crochet, and there we go. So here we had our 7 stitches. So let's take a look at a chart here real quick. So we have the 7, and then we have open, double, open. Here we have 7, and then open, double, open. All right, so we're ready to move on. So next we have to make 9 double crochets right after this. This one counts as your first double crochet. So we've already got 1, 2, 3. All right, and I've completed my 9 stitches, and now we just have to repeat the 2 open stitches like we did before. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip 1, and then we're going to double crochet. So that's 1 open stitch plus our double crochet, and then we chain 1, we're going to skip 1, and then we're going to skip this stitch right here. You're going to have to double crochet into that open space. So in that chain space, that's where you double crochet, and there we go. So we have our 2 open stitches, and then we have to double crochet 7 to complete the row. This one counts as stitch number 1. So then we do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and stitch number 7 is going to go into that chain space, so this top chain stitch. And this is the chain 2 that you do at the beginning of every row. So into that top chain, you're going to insert your hook and stitch the last double crochet of the row. All right, so there we go. That was row number 2 on our chart. For row number 3, we are going to begin with a chain 2. And then we have to work 7 double crochets because we want to line up our open stitches. So we begin with this one, that is 1. We're going to skip 1 stitch and go into the next one for double crochet number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, and in this row, we need to work 3 open stitches. So in the previous row, here we worked 2. This row, we need 3. So we're going to add 1 more here at the end. So we're going to begin with our first open stitch, so chain 1. We're going to skip this chain space, and we're going to work our double crochet into the double crochet of the previous row. So we're going to line up our open stitches. So there was 1, chain 1, we're going to skip the chain space, double crochet into the double crochet of the previous row. So that our work looks like this. All right, and we have 1 more open stitch. So we're going to skip 1 and double crochet in the stitch after that. So let me pull back a bit, you can see what we just did. So we lined up 2 of our open stitches and added 1 more towards the center. We need to work 5 double crochets now. So we've already got 1 made, just made the second, we got 3, 4, and 5. And then we need to do 3 open stitches again. So we begin with chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet. And it'll look like this. And now you just double crochet into the remaining stitches of the row. So you should have a total of 7 double crochets here. Alright, so that was row number 3. Row number 4 begins with a chain 2, turn your work around, and we're going to begin again with 7 double crochets. Once you have your 7 double crochet, we're going to work a few open stitches. So we're going to begin on this side, and we're going to make open stitches all the way across until you get to this last open stitch. So we're just going to chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Alright, so I've made it all the way across, and for the rest of the row you just complete your double crochets. So you're going to complete 7 double crochets, and then I will see you here in just a moment. Alright, so row number 5 is going to be just a little bit different than what we've been doing, because we have to bring in the stars. So we have to angle it in a little bit so it actually looks like a bit of a star. So for this next row, we're going to reduce the number of open stitches that we have, and we also have to interlock them. So we're going to begin with 8 double crochets. So we chain 2, work 8 double crochets, and then I'll see you here in a moment. Once you've got your 8 double crochets ready to go, we have to begin our open stitching. So for this one, we only need 7 open stitches. For this last stitch, which is going to be stitch number 8, because I've got 7 stitches, stitch number 8 is going to be worked into that chain space. So here are 8 double crochets with the 8th one worked into that chain space. Alright, so now we have to complete 7 open stitches, and we have to interlock them with the ones from the previous row. So instead of making your double crochet into the double crochet of the previous round, you have to finish your double crochet into this chain space. So when you do your chain 1, you skip 1, so you're going to skip the double crochet, and you're going to double crochet into the chain space. Alright, so chain 1, skip the double crochet in the chain space. So it'll look like this. So let's do another one. Chain 1, skip the double crochet, and double crochet in the chain space. Alright, so you're going to get all the way across. You need 7 of these, and you're going to end right here. So this is what your work is going to look like. And now all it's left to do is double crochet into the remaining stitches of the row. So I'll finish this row and see you in a moment. Alright, so for row number 6, we have to expand the star again. So we have to add another stitch, which means we're going to be doing something similar to what we did for row number 5, but we have to interlock the stitches like we did for our previous row. So we begin with chain 2, you're going to turn your work around, and then we're going to work 7 double crochets. So I've got 7 double crochets right here, and now we're going to begin our open stitching. So I need 8 open stitches. So we're going to interlock just like we did in the previous row. So we're going to begin with a chain 1. We're going to skip the double crochet this time right here, and we're going to work into this chain space. So skip the double crochet and double crochet in the chain space, like so. When you finish the 8 open stitches, just work the remaining stitches as double crochets so that it matches this end right here, and then I'll see you at the beginning of the next row. Alright, we're going to begin our next row with a chain 2, and then we need to work 3 double crochets, because now we're going to make the little side tips of the star, or the little side legs if you want to look at them that way. And this row, we're going to work 12 open stitches. So we're going to add 2 on either side of our open stitches. So we begin with 3 double crochets, and then we immediately begin to open stitch. These open stitches are going to line up with the ones that you did in your previous row. So once you finish, you're going to do your last 3 double crochets, and your row should look like this. So for our next row, we need to close up 4 of these open stitches. So we have to close 4 stitches on either side of the star. So we close up these 4. We're going to line up the middle 4, and then we have to close the remaining 4. So we begin with a chain 2. Then you're going to turn your work around, and we're going to work these 3 double crochets. So there's 2, 3, and then to close an open stitch, you're going to double crochet into the chain space. And we have to do this for the first 4 open spaces. So double crochet in the chain space, like so. And then you're going to double crochet in the double crochet, like that. So it's going to close up your stitch. So a double crochet in the chain space and a double crochet above the double crochet. So here's the one for the chain space. And then we're going to make a double crochet in the double crochet, like that. So that way it closes the stitch. So we're going to repeat this for the remaining 2 open stitches. So here we go, double crochet in the chain space, double crochet in the double crochet in the chain space, and then double crochet in the double crochet. And there we go. So once you've got these stitches, you've closed up 4 of them, we're going to work 4 open stitches. So your work should look like this. So here are my 4 open stitches. They all line up with the stitches from the previous row. And then for the remaining stitches of the row, I'm going to have to close the last 4 open stitches, just like we did here at the beginning of this row, and then finish off with an additional 3 double crochets. So close up these 4 stitches, finish these 3 double crochets, and I'll see you again in just a moment. Once you finish your row, it should look like this. Now for the next row, we're just going to leave the 2 center stitches open. We're going to close up the 2 stitches along the side the same way we did these stitches. So we're going to stitch all the way across to here. And you're going to close this open stitch. You're going to leave 2 open stitches, close the last one, and then double crochet into the remaining stitches of the row. When you complete the row, it should look like this. So we've got 2 open stitches and everything else has been closed up. Now for the next row, we're going to crochet up until we get to this first open stitch. We need just 1 open stitch for this next row, and we're going to place it right in between the 2 open stitches of the previous row. So we're going to interlock them like we have some of the previous stitches. So I worked a double crochet into all of these closed stitches until I got to my first open stitch. Now here, I need to make 1 double crochet right into that chain space, and then I need to make an open stitch. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the double crochet, and we are going to double crochet in the chain space. And this way we have the 1 open stitch right in between the 2 open stitches of the previous row, so it'll be nice and centered. Now for the rest of the row, you just double crochet in every stitch. Now we have 1 row left, and it's going to be just a repetition of what we did in the previous row. So for row number 11, just do the exact same thing you did. You're going to line up your 2 open stitches, and your star will be completed. Once you complete your star, you would do your color switch, and then just continue with your striping. So you've completed your star, then you would do 1 row in your next color, 1 row in the original color, and then you go 2, 4, and so forth. So there's 1, 1, 2, 4, and then 2, 1, 1, star. For this pattern, I did 3 rows of stars. So I completed this little section, I did stars, an extended center section, stars, center section, stars, and then the end over here. After I've completed all of this, all of the different stripes and the stars, you have to weave in your ends. So if you are new to crochet, you've never woven in ends, please go check out that video tutorial. It's in the description box. So make sure that when you cut your yarn, every color change, you leave a nice long tail end. Then you have enough yarn to weave it in and your work won't become unraveled. Alright, so for this border, don't forget to check out that border video tutorial. I teach you 4 different borders on there. You can pick any of those for this blanket, they all work. Just remember to switch to your 5mm hook. And once you've completed your border, finished weaving in all of your ends, you're ready to go. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I post videos every week. If you would like to see the written pattern for this tutorial, don't forget to check out the link in the description box. And if you'd like to see some more of my work, you can always follow me on Instagram. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down in the comments section, or you can also email me. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all again in the next tutorial.